Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be different than usual because I thought to do a bit of a more educational piece about the composition sketch you see me doing almost every week. So I did a little painting yesterday, but most of all a lot of preparations of my painting panels. And this is the block-in and some more than the block-in I did yesterday on a piece partly from imagination. It is very rough still, and I started doing some details over here, but it doesn't look like I intended it to yet. So you'll see much more of that in the coming videos, I hope. I used the fabric I showed you last time, but it is quite difficult to paint wet on wet, so maybe I have to do it differently and let it dry first and then try to add more detail. I will see how to figure that out. And today I wanted to tell you what I always tell my students. So some of you may know that I teach. I have been doing that since 9 years already. Just after I I started teaching when I was still studying at the art academy. So I think that it is already 10 years ago. But right now I am teaching an evening course at the Classical Art Academy in Groningen, which I'm very happy about because it doesn't interfere with my own work. And I love teaching, so I'm happy that I'm able to do it right there, right now. Anyway, the part about composition is very important in my lessons. I really consider myself the ambassador of the composition sketch. I see making a composition sketch as a kind of drawing a building plan for a building. So when you build a new house, you wouldn't just start putting one brick above the other and just see how it goes and how it ends. No, you will have a certain plan, a goal to achieve. And the same thing is this composition sketch. You can't just, well, you can when you're just studying and you want to experiment with color and see what the paint does. Obviously, you can do all that. I'm not telling you not to. But when you want to make a painting, a finished painting, it's so important that you know what you're doing, because when you're working in color, it's very difficult. The paint flows. The color is a complicated subject matter. So it is very important that you make it easy for yourself and you figure some things out in a sketch beforehand. So that is what I always tell my students, and I wanted to tell you my theory, my view on composition in this video, especially because you always see me making this sketch and you don't know what I'm thinking. So in this composition sketch, you try to figure out what is the essence of your subject. You try to simplify it in a few values. You try to find the biggest lines and you make your own creative choices already. So not about color, you can keep that in your head, but about value and form. So, for example, you have to find out where to put your focal point, and you ask yourself certain questions about what you want. But first, I want to explain to you what a good composition is, in my opinion. So if you have a different opinion, that's totally okay. Don't be mad at me. In my opinion, it is easiest to explain what a good composition is about by comparing it to a poem. So in a poem, or well, at least maybe the more classical ones, you have a certain rhythm by rhyme, obviously, but it can also be something else. Anyway, let's go with the rhyme. You have a certain rhyme, a certain rhythm that makes you see that this poem is a unity, there is a harmony in it. And the same thing is with a painting. So you have this rhythm of colors that you see echoing. It is kind of repetition. The repetition is very important. You have this repetition of colors. You have the repetition of values, of lines, of directions. You have a rhythm of textures, for example. It can be anything. And this repetition creates a rhythm, and this rhythm creates a unity, a harmony in your painting. So that is something to really think about in a composition sketch as well. So that repetition is one of the most important parts of a good composition, finding the harmony. But in a poem, you have this rhyme, but it starts getting really interesting when there is a change, a kind of break of the pattern. For example, when halfway the rhyme goes the other way, or when the last two sentences of the poem sound completely different than the rest. What happens at those points is that the reader thinks, oh, something is happening here, there's a change. There might be a hidden meaning here, or, well, at least they stop to think and you grab their attention when there is a change. And the same thing is when you have a break from the repetition in a painting. So that point is called the focal point in painting. It is created by having a big contrast from the rest. So that can be any contrast. It can be a big contrast in values, so very light value next to a very dark one. But it can also be a very big contrast in color. So complementary colors, well, are combined are a huge contrast. It can also be a contrast in shape or texture. So, for example, a spot painting very thick in comparison to a lot of more thinly painted patches, or a very sharp contour against very fuzzy ones. So that's the focal point, and that is the thing you want to emphasize, obviously, in your painting. So when I explain about composition, this is, I think, the most important part. I am not a person to overanalyze things about geometrical shapes that you see in many art books. I am not really about all the theory behind composition because I trust that people have an intuition, and so an intuitive feel of what is a great balance and a strong image. And that is also, well, something I count on when I paint myself. I count on my own intuition. And I use my brains as well a bit to think what I want to emphasize. But when it comes to really the aesthetics of the balance of the whole, I think that we can trust ourselves. So that is the base of my theory about composition, let's say. And then we come to the placement of the focal point. No, first we have some other steps. What I say to my students always is the first thing you do when you see your subject, ask yourself the question, what do I find beautiful? What is interesting to me? Because if you don't find something beautiful or interesting, then there is no point painting it. Or at least that's my opinion. I wouldn't want to paint something that I find boring. So I always ask myself the question first, what do I find beautiful? And you must not give yourself a kind of vague answer like, yeah, I just think it's a nice subject, or I just like the colors, or yeah, it's also fluffy. No, it really must be a concrete answer. So, for example, I like these very hard shapes against the more fuzzy lines in the background. Or I like the way all the lines in the landscape point to a certain tree. Or I like how I see this kind of zigzag line that ends in a rounded shape. You really have to point out what you like about something. So you can choose what kind of frame you want. So do you want a very long horizontal composition or a very long elegant one? I also use a lot of, how are they called? Square compositions. I think they give a kind of coziness to the painting. But then again, it's obviously all about where you place that focal point inside the frame. And for that, I wanted to give you an example of one of my composition heroes, which is Anders Zorn. I bought this catalog in Paris when I was there with my husband many years ago. And we didn't know that Anders Zorn, that there was an exhibition about his work. So that was a nice surprise. It was in a Petit Palais and it was just amazing to watch. I love almost everything about Anders Zorn, his work, except for the colors. So don't shoot me. I know that it's just a matter of taste. I don't question his ability to paint at all. He's one of my heroes. But I think that in many paintings, his color choices are a bit strange. There are often some shapes, some very colorful parts that don't have a relation to the rest of the painting. But when it comes to finding exciting and strong compositions, I really think that Zorn is great. And for that, I wanted to give you some examples. So I was telling you about where to place the focal point in a frame. And the great thing about Anders Zorn is that he very often, almost always, finds a spot for his focal points in a corner, or in an extreme. The compositions are extreme. For example, this very famous one, La Valse. Where are the colors? So this is an etching. And what I like about these etchings is that they are so, they have such a strong hierarchy, and also these lines are just great in character. And I like his paintings too, but I think that I may like these etchings even more. And the great thing is that very often he made etchings as a preparation for his bigger paintings. So you see that in this etching of La Valse. And well, when I ask you the question, where is the focal point? I think you agree with me that the left part of the painting is where the biggest contrast is. So yeah, obviously you also have a little light in the dark part on the right, but the overall most dominant part is in the left part of the painting. And I love that because you look both at the couple who's dancing and the room behind it where you see all those people dancing. So it is really capable of telling a story in this composition. And if we look to the painting itself, I have to find it first. I did put these little pieces of paper. Yeah. So the painting itself is really much like the etching when it comes to the values and his choices for the frame and the placing of the focal point. He didn't change much, and I think that's just how it should be done, because very often in my courses you see people who make a composition sketch and then while they are actually painting they change a lot because they just don't they are not used to use a composition sketch, and so they kind of forget it when those essential choices you made in the start, those fresh choices, are usually the best ones. So you mustn't ignore it, but you really have to keep in mind what was your initial goal. Because when you start to paint, you use color, and color is just a difficult subject. And you start seeing all those details, you might just blow them up and make something that is totally different than you intended to. So here you see that it is still about the left part of the composition. I think this is a great painting, and this is an example of where I really like the Zorn palette. It's very harmonious in the whole, and there are no colors that just jump out of the painting, having no relation to the whole. Zorn often does this a bit of Dutch. Another example I very often give to my students from this book is this one, which is great because you see the thought process of Zorn. This is the preparation for a portrait, and he made 2 etchings. So you see how different it looks when you play around with the values. Here, the figure is kind of hidden in darkness, and he really captures the atmosphere well. When right here, the face of the model, the woman, is very light. And so the atmosphere is very different, but it starts becoming a bit more of a portrait because the focal point is her face. The lines point toward her face, and the biggest value contrast is over there. So the interesting thing is that he was obviously really thinking about this because he also made a color sketch. And this is, here's the color sketch, and this is the final piece. And what I very much like to see is that he found a way in between those two etchings, because her face is not so light as in the etching I just showed you, but it's also not so dark as the first etching. So what we have here is he didn't want to compromise on the atmosphere. I think she's still kind of in the shade, but it looks like there is a little bit of a reflection from another light as well on her face, which makes it her face stand out, but also the lighting is still kind of naturalistic, you know. What he also did to emphasize her upper part, the upper part here, is making a very strong contrast in shape. So you have all these very fuzzy lines from her clothing, but right here it's all very, very sharp in contour. So I like it, and obviously again you have this focal point in an extreme, not corner, but in the extreme upper part of the painting. What I don't like here is what I told you before, is that the red is so red that it doesn't have an echo in the rest of the painting. So it looks kind of weird, like it doesn't belong. But that is something, I think, because I really want my paintings to have a lot of colors without making them jump out too much. So I always want to make colors repeat in order to create this harmony and rhythm I was telling you about at the start of the video. So in the last videos, when I was working on my still lifes, you might have seen me using this little sketchbook. I will fetch it one moment. So this little one, it is great also when you go painting en plein air, because you don't want to bring a lot of heavy stuff with you. So this was the composition sketch for the artichokes, which are here behind me. This one is done now, and it will soon have to go to the framer to the frame maker when it will be dry. So I always make small sketches, because otherwise it would take too long to make them. And the first thing I do after I've chosen my composition, so my focal point and the way I place everything I see in the frame, the first thing I do is I look at what is the lightest part, or what are the lightest parts. So I leave that part open, and then the rest I will give a kind of middle gray value. That helps, because then you really work in a structured way. And I really recommend doing this to anyone who starts drawing as well. If you do a bit of dark right here and a bit of dark right there, and you leave a lot of white open from the paper, then you will not achieve a hierarchy soon, and you might find it difficult to find your way in the composition. So by doing this, you really make a statement. This is the lightest light, and nothing else must be light as that. So you say that right away, and that really helps. And the next part is what is darker than the the gray value I added. And then you go towards the darkest dark. So you really must take little steps at a time to make this sketch. The most important thing is, I think, not to leave too much white open from the paper, because those whites really grab the attention of you and of the other people who look at your drawing. So it creates a kind of restless drawing with no hierarchy. Hierarchy is really the most important thing about composition. So repetition and hierarchy. I think that's it really. When I don't pay much attention to my composition sketch because I'm in a rush and I think, oh well, for this time I will not do it. Okay is also okay, you know. Then when starting painting, at a certain point I will feel lost and annoyed with myself that I didn't take the time to make a good composition sketch, because that's really the base structure of your work. It is a thing that happens when you go to a museum, for example, and you are far away from a painting you see hanging on a wall in a large room. You think, oh, that's interesting. What is that? I want to see it. And you haven't seen what it depicts yet. You don't know anything about it. You only see some shapes and colors. Well, that is composition. It's just the abstract structure of reality. And if that's not good, then the whole painting is ruined. So that's all about the composition sketch today. I think I talked a lot, and right now I really want to paint. So next week I will show you more about my process again and share with you my thoughts and well, kind of an update about what I'm working on. But yeah, I've had a lot of questions about technique, and apparently people wanted to know more about this. So if there are other topics you'd like to hear me talk about, then please let me know in the comments below. I will not do a full demonstration of painting and then telling you everything I do. And I already do those things in my own live lessons. But if there is a specific topic you'd like to know more about, then you can always let me know, and I will see how I can put that in my videos. So, have a nice day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!